And we are live. Holy shit. I haven't been here in so long. But pretty much what the title implies, the alpha brain versus the beta brain. And it's not really about the hierarchies in society or anything like that. It's more just about how you have certain parts of your brain that are activated that tell you do this, do that, and you have other parts of your brain that tell you to do this or do that. So that's pretty much what this video is going to be about. What part of the brain tells you to go do this, and what part of your brain tells you to not do that. If you guys took psychology, you guys should have like a basic understanding of that. But for the most part, let's get right into it. So, what it's going to be the amygdala versus the prefrontal cortex. And obviously, both roles play a good part in your life. So you still need the amygdala to tell you, look, there's a hole right here. Don't step in that hole. Because if you step in that hole, you're going to mess up your leg or you're going to trip and fall and hit your head or things like that. So it's perfectly fine to have an amygdala. But at the same time, can you fuck? I don't know how good you guys are going to be able to hear me. Hopefully, it's not too bad. But let me share my screen with you. Wait, just need to fix this real quick. Let me see. Okay, here it is. Perfect. All right. We're doing it live. We're going to be pretty raw on this since we're barely starting out. But the prefrontal cortex. So let's click on this right here. And pretty much the prefrontal cortex, it is designed to pretty much tell your brain you need to do these things. Look, it functions in short-term memory, decision making, mood regulation, and other complex behaviors that depend on the prefrontal cortex are all based on multiple long-range connections between neurons. So, pretty much what it's saying is that the prefrontal cortex has a lot to do with our lives. So, it has a lot to do. Have you ever gotten those six-digit codes? Your prefrontal cortex is the one that's remembering those codes. The reason why they do it six digits is because your brain can only remember up to six numbers in a very short period of time. So within 3 to 6 seconds, it's going to remember those numbers, and then after that, it's going to completely forget it, and your brain's not going to store those numbers whatsoever in your head. The connectivity between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala is believed to be critical for the regulation of emotion and has been implicated in anxiety and mood disorders in humans. So, whenever schizophrenics are diagnosed with schizophrenia, they scan their brain. And what do they find? They usually find that schizophrenics have larger amygdala. So let me share this other tab with us. So right here is literally saying that the amygdala has structural and functional abnormalities in schizophrenia. So pretty much it's an abnormal function of the brain. So whenever your amygdala is not working right, it causes you to become more fearful. So if it's taking over your brain, your amygdala is taking over your brain, then that's causing you to become super anxious and super paranoid. Have you ever heard of the word paranoia? Within paranoia, paranoid, weed. So whenever you're having paranoia with weed, it's because your amygdala is being activated like crazy. So whenever when you use cannabis, certain compounds in it, including THC, the psychoactive compound in cannabis, bind to endocannabinoid receptors in various parts of your brain, including the amygdala. So once you start taking too much weed, it starts activating your amygdala like crazy and you start getting paranoid. So what this entails whenever you're dieting and things like that, whenever you're a fat person, you're unhealthy, your amygdala is taking over your brain. So foods that activate amygdala. This is never talked about in the online space, and this is something I've lived with for this is something I've actually lived in surface level. So I've actually applied all this information. So this past 2 years, 3 years, I've been actually actively watching my diet, monitoring it, making sure I feel good. And every time I don't eat good, I'll get more anxious, more stressed out, and I start thinking about the future a whole lot more, which is directly linked with anxiety. If you're an anxious person, it's because your amygdala is probably most likely the proactive part of your brain. Now, I'm not saying that eating solely healthy food is going to activate your prefrontal cortex and prevent your amygdala from working, but it's definitely going to help whenever you're trying to regulate it. So, the amygdala is not your enemy, it's the overactivation of that amygdala. So as you can see, a few studies have investigated the underlying neural substrates of food addiction in humans using a recognized assessment tool. In addition, those studies have investigated subregions of the amygdala and syndrome, which have linked to reward seeking behaviors susceptible to weight gain and promoting appetitive behaviors in the context of the food addiction. This pilot study aimed to explore the association between food addiction symptoms and activation in the amygdala or central amygdala. So, in response to visual food cues in fasted and fed states, females aged 18 to 35 completed two MRI scans, fasted and fed, while viewing high calorie food images and low calorie food images. Food addiction symptoms were assessed using the Yale Food Addiction Scale. Associations between the FA symptoms and activation of the BLA and central amygdalas were tested using. Okay, it's just telling you a significant positive association was identified between food addiction symptoms and higher activation of the left basolateral amygdala to high calorie versus low calorie foods in the fasted session, but not the fed session. So whenever you're fed, your brain is telling you, I don't want to eat this no more. But whenever you have a big bowl of carbs or a big bag of chips, what do? You finish eating the food, and your brain is literally telling you, don't eat this no more. Your brain is not telling you anything, it's not having a response, it's not telling you, keep on eating this, stop eating this. But for the most part, we keep on eating, right? We've all been there. I've had party size chips and I finished size chips in one sitting. And I don't even crave it no more. I don't even want it no more. So whenever you're in a fasted state, your brain is literally telling you, I want the high calorie food. So over time, your brain is very malleable. So over time, as you keep on eating these bad foods, you keep on slowly adding high calorie foods into your diet. You keep on making it worse and worse on yourself. You slowly build up that part that associates your brain with looking at food and wanting to eat that food even more. So scientists are finally grasping this. I mean, it's been grasped for a long time, but they're finally seeing that there is a direct correlation with that. So scientific interest in the possible role of food addiction underlying particular patterns of overeating, dietary relapse, and weight gain in vulnerable individuals. So vulnerable individuals, obviously they can't be biased here and say, but vulnerable individuals are going to have bigger amygdalas, and not only that, they're going to be fatter individuals. So you're literally feeding your brain. You are what you eat, right? You're feeding your brain these fatty foods, these high caloric foods, and you're slowly growing your amygdala, and it's slowly getting worse and worse and worse over time. And although you don't notice it from a very young age, you've been a victim to this. Because I don't care what anybody says, you're a victim to the foods you eat at a young age. And the perpetrator, the person that is the the one that's funding all the food is your parent or your caretaker, whoever it is, who's ever bringing in the food, is causing you to gain all this weight, and it's causing you. You're a victim. I promise you, you're a victim. Now, when you're older, you're still going to be a victim to these foods, and that's what I want you guys to understand: is that your beta brain pretty much is your amygdala, and your beta brain is telling you keep on eating these foods. You're stressed, you're anxious. These foods will calm you down, and from a young age, that's what you've been doing. I would do that. Even to this day, I find myself doing that. Whenever I'm stressed out, I'm sad, I want to find my comfort foods that make me feel good. So, visual food cues right here. Visual food cues and consumption of palatable, energy dense foods have been shown to activate reward related brain circuits in humans in a similar way to substances of abuse. So, it's pretty much saying that food is directly correlated with your dopamine levels. So, you eat bad food, and you see bad food again, your brain is going to tell you keep on eating that bad food. So this has a lot to do with your psychology. It has a lot to do with your brain, okay? And this is the problem when it comes to dieting. This is a huge problem that a lot of people do not address, is that a lot of the food that you guys tend to eat is literally causing your brain in real time to get more addicted. So despite accumulating supporting the food addiction as a phenomenon in preclinical and behavioral research. Few studies have investigated the potential underlying neural substrates in humans. Many studies have used obesity as a proxy for addictive, like eating, in lieu of a recognized assessment tool for FA, such as Yale Food Addiction Scale. Using obesity as a proxy for FA could result in inconsistent neuroimaging finding, as it is unclear as to the proportion of participants truly affected by addictive like eating in these samples. So they did a survey, and the survey it's not good information to get from a survey because you don't know what the person's eating, you don't know their upbringing and stuff like that, and you don't know their neurochemistry of their brain. So it's hard to really come to a conclusion. So, in one neuro imaging study using a recognized food addiction assessment tool, Yale symptoms were associated, or Yale Food Addiction Scale symptoms were associated with response to visual milkshake cue in brain areas encoding the reward value of foods and craving, amygdala, anterior cingulate cortex. So, there's multiple areas of your brain being activated. So even your prefrontal cortex is activated, but in young females. So this is in younger. So if you're 18 to 21, it's going to affect you more. So in another study, while main effects were found while main effects were found activation in the amygdala. That's weird. Gotta fix that. Nucleus accumbens and inferior prefrontal cortex in response to the taste of sugar sweetened beverages. No relationships were observed between white fat symptoms and neural response in male and female adolescents. So they're testing young kids. So young kids are not really susceptible to this. So if you're like 12 to 18, you're not really susceptible. So 12 to 18, it's a lot easier to diet. Think about that. So 12 to 18, if you manage to stop eating the bad foods, it's going to be a lot easier for you to get out of it. And it's true. Like if you see a kid that's smoking weed and you tell them to military school, they stop smoking weed, that kid is all of a sudden starts acting right, right? Unless their chemistry in the brain is completely messed up and their upbringing is completely horrible. But for the most part, that kid lets go of those addictions. But as they get older, the addiction gets progressively worse, and it's the same way with food. So the prefrontal cortex benefits. So the prefrontal cortex is not activated whenever we're eating these fatty foods. So it gets deregulated and the amygdala gets regulated. So it's a part of the brain that controls higher cognitive functions. And that's why they make you wait until you're 21 to drink. Because if you're 18 and you're drinking, you're not going to allow your brain to fully develop the prefrontal cortex, as it is the last thing to develop. So decision making, planning, reasoning, concentration, judgment, memory, retrieval, stress control. It's your logical part of your brain that finalizes in decision making, that finalizes in what move you're going to make, it finalizes in what answer you're going to give in a test. It's going to allow you to concentrate on your work studies, on things like that, on your work. So, food is directly correlated with so many aspects and areas of your life. So, if you start slowly eating bad food, guess what? You're slowly getting rid of this. You're slowly getting rid of your decision making skills, your planning, your reasoning, your concentration. And why do you see so many entrepreneurs, so many people that are making good money in shape? Why do you see Elon Musk working out now? Why do you see Jeff Bezos in amazing shape now? Yeah, he might be taking a little bit of steroids, but it's fine. He's 50, so it's perfectly normal. I'm pretty sure he got prescribed by a doctor to take TRT because his TRT levels are dropping. His testosterone is dropping, obviously, as he's getting older. But guess who else is aware of this, of taking advantage of your prefrontal cortex? Mark Zuckerberg. So, Mark Zuckerberg obviously created Facebook. He's taken over Instagram and he's taking over threads. Like, come on, dude. You guys got to look at this. So, prefrontal cortex benefits. So, let's how foods that help prefrontal cortex. So, nuts and seeds. So, walnuts, almonds, peanuts. So, fatty foods, salmon, beans, blueberries, dark and leafy greens, lean red meat. Lean red meat. Look at that. So blueberries, green leafy vegetables, salmon, beans, dark chocolate, coffee, and tea, turmeric, tomatoes. There's so many benefits to coffee. Coffee, yeah, there's some downsides to it, but for the most part, the downsides are outweighed by the upsides. I mean, it increases your testosterone, it makes you function better, helps your concentration. Literally, our life that we currently have right now is directly linked to caffeine consumption because it went from the sun will control our circadian rhythm, but as soon as we found coffee beans, and we took advantage of that and got addicted to it, all of a sudden, we're no longer a victim to the sun's circadian rhythm. We have our own circadian rhythm. So with that, it allowed us to really revolutionize the world, and we could see that. You know who is a big proponent of coffee? Isaac Newton. What did Isaac Newton discover? He discovered Not only did he discover gravity, he discovered calculus, he discovered the different rays of light. Not only did he discover different rays of light, he discovered infrared. I think he discovered another one. I forgot what it's called, but he discovered all these things. We owe our lives. This laptop wouldn't have been possible without him. The internet wouldn't have been possible without him. So, what destroys the prefrontal cortex? So, dementia and other brain strokes, brain tumors. So, foods that help the prefrontal cortex, and then let's search up foods that activate amygdala. So, magnesium. And where do we find magnesium? Magnesium helps regulate the amygdala, so it relaxes these symptoms. So, if you're feeling like tight muscles, increased sensitivity, or insomnia or anxiety, where is magnesium found? So, in green leafy vegetables such as spinach, legumes, whatever, nuts, seeds, and whole grains are good sources. So, spinach is a superfood. Does spinach help prefrontal cortex function? Spinach is rich in nutrients that are good for the brain, including lutein, vitamin K, Lutein is an antioxidant that helps remove toxins from the brain and may prevent age-related mental decline. Vitamin K can help sharpen memory. So this is good if you're a student to take spinach. I drink about 2 to 3 cups of spinach a day. 2 cups of, I would say, like a cup and a half of spinach, a cup and a half of kale, and a cup of collard greens. Those to me are the best ones. Broccoli is really good too, but broccoli, in my opinion, is not as good to drink. I drink all my vegetables. I don't cook them. I drink them all. It's just to get my vitamins in. So, foods linked to better brain power. Look at this. Foods linked to better brain power. Just as there is no magic pill to prevent cognitive decline, no single almighty brain food can ensure a sharp brain as you age. Nutrition emphasizes that the most important strategy is to follow a healthy dietary pattern that includes a lot of fruits, vegetables, legumes, and whole grains. Try to get protein from plant sources and fish, and choose healthy fats such as olive oil or canola rather than saturated fats. So, green leafy greens such as kale, sorry, spinach, collards, broccoli are rich in brain healthy nutrients like vitamin K, lutein, folate, and beta carotene. I don't know what these are, but research suggests that these plant foods may help slow cognitive decline. Fatty fish, berries are really good. The caffeine in your morning cup of coffee or tea might offer more than just a short-term concentration boost. In a 2014 study published in the Journal of Nutrition, participants with higher caffeine consumption scored better on tests of mental function. Caffeine might also solidify new memories, according to other researchers. Investigators at John Hopkins University asked participants to study a series of images and then take either a placebo or 200 milligram caffeine tablet. More members of the caffeine group were able to correctly identify the images on the following day. So, as you can see, food is directly linked with brain function. So, whenever you're eating all these bad foods, so saturated fat causing brain fog. First, the researcher noted that diets high in saturated fat may contribute to neuroinflammation and poor cognitive function. They may also contribute to impairments in long term memory. So, what did we say about the prefrontal cortex? Is very correlated with your memory, even with your long term memory. Although we didn't read that, it is correlated with your long term memory. So, what do you want to avoid? Is saturated foods. What foods do we eat that have saturated fat? Let's see. Foods high in saturated fat: butter, coconut oil, palm oil, cakes, biscuits, fatty cuts of meat, sausages, bacon, cured meats like salami, chorizo, and pancetta, cheese. Why do we want these foods? We do not want these foods in our diet. We want to avoid these foods. And that's why a lot of Muslims don't eat pork. They don't eat pork because super high in it's super high in saturated fat. You guys want to avoid those. So red and processed meat. So pretty much it's just saying red meat isn't bad for you, but processed meat is. So such as your sausages, your bacons, your fast food joints, all those foods, they're not good for you. You want to avoid them. Chocolate is pretty fucking bad for you. I wouldn't really recommend chocolate. I don't really eat cheese, so I don't care about cheese. Cakes, biscuits, buns, and pastries. The reason why it's because it has a lot of milk and sugar and stuff like that. So it's pretty bad. You see milk right here, 6%. That's a lot. So we want our brain, our prefrontal cortex, our alpha brain, right? And I just said alpha because it's easier to understand. Alpha is the leader. So the frontal lobe is where your prefrontal area is. As you can see, the prefrontal lobe. And what's in the back of the brain? The amygdala. The amygdala is sitting somewhere around here. It doesn't show it in this image. Let me see. Let me see if I could find it. Let's see, cortex, dorsolateral, ventrolateral, orbital lateral. That's just orbital frontal. That's just fancier words of saying what part of the brain it belongs in, what region of the brain. But this is all your prefrontal cortex. And your prefrontal cortex isn't developed until you're 25. Think about that. Until you're 25 years old, you're not going to have a full functioning prefrontal cortex. That's what they say. Your brain doesn't stop developing until you're 25. The rest of your brain does, and it's still growing neural pathways and all that even until you're 60. But your prefrontal cortex doesn't fully develop until you're 25. And that's why a lot of 25-year-olds start thinking about career, getting a house, getting a job, because you start thinking less with the emotion, less with the amygdala, less with the hippocampus, and they start thinking more an objective and truthful stand. So, like, okay, I need to provide, I need to take care of my family, I need to take care of myself, I need to go find a career that pays me well. And that's why whenever you're 18, they say just have your fun. Because when you're 18, your brain is not even developed yet. So I think right here, as you can see, from five from 5 years old to 20, look at your prefrontal cortex. It's not fully developed. Look at how much transmission is getting. Look, pretty much very, very low amounts of gray matter, or I'm not too sure what this is right here. I'm not gonna say that. So a 5-year-old brain, the front. So okay, yeah, I was right. So the 5-year-old brain, the front of the brain, look less fully mature, and the purple, the more purple it gets, more fully mature. So as you can see, 20-year-old brain, it's almost fully developed, but it's still not all the way there. So right here, it's literally telling you prefrontal cortex controls impulses, further develops and matures in early 20s. So it matures, it reaches its final stage, just like how a man reaches his final stages of maturity at 21 and 22. Your brain is also developing as well, not just your body, your brain is too. So, how can we make the brain function a whole lot better? And we already went over that. It's by eating leafy greens. You can eat beans, you can eat nuts, you can eat berries, blueberries, any kind of berries, blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, any kind of berry. Those are so low in calories. You can eat 2 to 3 cups of them. And let's see. Sorry about that dog, man. I really, that dog is so annoying. So let's see. So it's 82 calories, one cup of berries. So that's 65 to 75 berries. You're gonna eat probably at most 2 cups. If you're allergic to it, try strawberries, try blackberries. There's always an alternative, no excuses. So red meats, such as let's do steak, vitamin B12, which is essential for preventing mental issues like fatigue, brain fog, nerve damage, and a decrease in brain volume for older people. So, red meat isn't the issue, it's pork. Pork is the issue. Processed meat is the issue. And whenever they say these foods cause cancer, it's McDonald's, all the chemicals they put into that McDonald's to make it taste like the way it tastes causes cancer. So, let's search it up. McDonald's food activating amygdala. So it regulates food intake, whatever. So 7 reasons we can't turn down fast food. Look, sugar is addictive, so it starts activating your amygdala. Let's see. Oh my god, that dog. Yeah, hopefully you guys can't hear him. I mean, I can hear him perfectly. It's like if he's literally right next door. He barks all day, every day. It's so annoying. So, depression and anxiety disorder are the most common mental diseases affecting hundreds of millions of people worldwide. So, this is a new phenomenon. Humans were never anxious like this. They were never depressed like this. This is something new. The Rate of anxiety disorder and depression is very high, with 74% of depressed patients having anxiety symptoms, while 61% of patients have depression symptoms. Stress exposure is widely accepted as a critical contributing factor to psychological and neuropathological disorders, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. The high pressure of increasingly demanding work and life has led to a sharp rise in the incidence of mental diseases. So they're saying it's work and life. I doubt that to be the case, but you know how a lot of people are. It's because work is stressful. My life, I can't live it because I'm always working. But have you ever seen people that are healthy that work a lot? They don't seem depressed. It's usually the people that sit at their job, very sedentary lifestyle. They're not really moving around. They're eating these fatty foods and everything. They go on their lunch. They go to the nearest McDonald's, Starbucks, Panera Bread, Burger King, whatever. Get these fatty foods that cause their brain to fucking not work. Literally, you don't want your amygdala to take over your brain. You do not want your amygdala to be a part of your brain. So let's see. Problem why the amygdala, and these words are so annoying. Why why the amygdala is dangerous to humans. So structural or functional changes in amygdala are associated with the wide variety of psychiatric conditions, such as various anxiety disorders, such as PTSD, phobia, panic disorders, depression, schizophrenia, and autism. Well, says when there is damage to the amygdala, but has a big amygdala or something like that. So studies have shown that larger amygdala volumes are associated with behavioral disorders. So prenatal maternal depression is associated with structure changes in the amygdala. So literally, so this is theory based right here. The amygdala is a part of the brain which owes its name to the shape, which reminds us of an almond. As for the majority of cerebral structures, we possess two amygdalas. Both are close to the hippocampus and the frontal part of the temporal lobe. The amygdala is essential in our capacity to feel and perceive certain feelings. It is the case of the fear and all the physical modifications it triggers. If you are followed at night by an odd individual and you feel your heart pounding, well, your amygdala is likely to be very active. That's a very good example. So when the amygdala hijacks the brain, what to know? So have you ever wondered why you jumped when you're startled? Maybe you wonder why you have whatever. The amygdala, like we already went over that. So so this is just saying that the amygdala is damaged, but you know, I doubt your guys' amygdala's damage is probably just overfed with all these fatty foods. This odd sounding name is not medical diagnosis, but rather a term for times when the amygdala is overwhelmed by stress and takes over the brain response to the situation. Remember that a major function of the amygdala is to process fear and anxiety. When the amygdala hijacks the brain, the frontal lobes are unable to override it with the rational response. It's literally saying that the amygdala takes over the brain and it does not allow your prefrontal cortex to work. So, you ever been on a sales call, a high pressure sales call, and they're literally telling you, are you going to buy it or not? And you feel pressure to buy it? It's because your amygdala is activated and your brain, your prefrontal cortex is trying to get back control, but it can't. And if you ever get pushed into that sale, you're like, God damn it. And then you buy it and you're like, fuck, it wasn't worth it. And then you go through the program and you realize, no, it wasn't worth it. Or you buy a car and your salesman is like, "Are you gonna buy the car or not? I want to go to other customers." That's when your amygdala starts hijacking your brain, making you rethink everything and all that. So meditation, deep breathing, exercising. So literally, exercising helps you reduce your amygdala from hijacking your brain. Work through symptoms of PTSD, severe anxiety, eat a healthy diet. They're literally telling you that a healthy diet contributes to a healthier amygdala. Drink water throughout the day and get enough sleep to contribute general good health. Don't rely on caffeine to keep you going. Yeah, I mean, caffeine is awesome. So, I mean, just figure out how much you should take and how much you can handle, and don't take too much caffeine where you're actually having the jitters and stuff like that. So, we want to avoid the sugar cause my amygdala. Oh my god, that dog does not shut up. Sugar impacts the brain reward response. High high glycemic foods have been found to activate regions of the brain associated with the reward response and provoke more intense feelings of hunger than low glycemic foods. So let's see. This is just comparing sugar in the brain. Oh my god. I'm sorry guys. Fucking dog does not shut up. I know I don't have no viewers, so it doesn't matter, but this is gonna be really important and very pivotal to my future. So this is just to set the stone. This is where I really want to be an expertise in. So I really want you guys to grasp, or even myself to grasp, this concept of the amygdala and how it plays an important role on your brain and how it affects you even in a behavioral standpoint. So whenever you're looking at foods, you're looking at what foods to eat, what foods to avoid, you're going to start thinking, if I eat this food, it's going to cause my amygdala to activate, my prefrontal cortex to deactivate. And I do not want that to happen to any of you or to myself, because I want to keep on functioning at a very good level and a level headed state where I can make rational decisions without emotion, because emotions don't have logic, and logic is directly correlated with having good results in life. So, why am I scared to eat sugar? Because sugar and the brain are not very good friends. So, artificial sugar. So, artificial sugar, high fructose corn syrup, that's sugar. So a 2012 study in animals by researchers at the University of Los Angeles indicated a positive relationship between the consumption of fructose, another form of sugar, and the aging of cells, while a 2009 study also using an animal model conducted by a team of scientists at the University of Montreal linked excess glucose consumption to memory and cognitive deficiencies. So high levels of glucose cause you to have memory and cognitive decline. So you're literally not allowing your memory to function the way it should be whenever you're eating foods high in glucose. Anything that's high in glucose is anything with sugar. So your sugary sweet teas, your sugary sodas, your sugary anything. You don't want these foods in your diet whatsoever. The effects of glucose and other forms of sugar on the brain may be the most profound in diabetes, a group of diseases in which high blood glucose levels persist over a prolonged period of time. Type 1 diabetes is a disease in which the immune system destroys the cells in the pancreas that produce insulin. So your body literally cannot produce insulin naturally. That's something you're born with. That's type 1 type diabetes. But type 2 diabetes is the one that you can actually regulate and avoid. A hormone used by the body to keep the blood glucose levels in check. Type 2 diabetes caused by dietary and other environmental factors is a condition in which cells become overwhelmed by insulin and fail to properly respond. They become resistant to insulin. So you do not want insulin resistance, and you could spike your insulin. What foods spike insulin? We can search this up right now. What foods spike insulin? So sugary drinks such as soda, juices, sport drinks, highly processed foods, and baked goods, which often contain trans fat, white rice, bread, and pasta, breakfast cereals with added sugar, yogurts with added sugar. So the day-to-day foods that we eat, such as white rice, bread, pasta, highly processed foods, baked goods, sugary drinks such as sodas, energy drinks, whatever, anything with sugar, anything that has a high glycemic index will cause you to literally ruin your insulin, and a high amounts of insulin cause your glucose levels to skyrocket. You do not want your glucose levels to skyrocket. So these foods right here help you regulate your blood sugars and your insulin. So beef, fatty fish, any kind of chicken, pork, eggs, shellfish, coconut, avocados, olives, full fat dairy, nuts, seeds. So literally carbs are the enemy. Carbs are the enemy. And I'm not saying all carbs are bad, but white carbs are. I know. I had to get races up in here. White carbs high in glycemic index. And this is something you guys should figure it out. Glycemic foods. So anything that's closer to 100 is going to ruin your insulin levels. So this is just trying to make me buy something so stupid. Didn't mean to buy that. So low is obviously your fruits, your vegetables, your milk products, and then medium is like sweet potatoes, peaches, mangoes, bananas, pineapples, things like that. Even wheat bread, vanilla ice cream. But things that are higher, white bread, white bagels, whole grain, not whole grains, wheat. That's why whenever they say, "Oh, you gotta avoid wheat, you gotta avoid gluten," whenever you see gluten free, it's because they don't want to spike their insulin levels. And honestly, if you avoid gluten, you're gonna avoid type 2 diabetes. Also, oats. Oh, potatoes are high. Oh shit. Potato, maybe French fries. I don't think potatoes are too high, but it says it's high. So it's tortilla chips. Let's see, donuts, fries, watermelon. Really, watermelon's up there? That's crazy. Pretty sure it's gonna be on the lower end, but still, that's pretty freaking high. Let's see. White bread, white rice, potatoes, sugary soft drinks, sugar and sugary foods. So, what I want you guys to grasp from this, what I want you guys to understand is that we need to avoid foods that activate our amygdala and help our prefrontal cortex function. So, prefrontal cortex foods to eat: green leafy vegetables, teas and coffees, berries, fatty fish, any red meats, pretty much any red meats. But you want to avoid pork. Pork is not too good because it has a lot of saturated fat. So I would rather you guys eat regular red meat, such as beef, steaks, stuff like that. Chicken is really good as well. Blueberries, salmon. You guys want to avoid anything that is sugary. And yeah, as you guys can see, I live by that. Zero sugar, zero sugar, zero sugar, zero calories. It doesn't taste as good, obviously. Even this right here, it causes a little bit of water weight gain, but it's because you're putting more water into your body. Zero sugar Coca-Cola, like all these things that your body can literally, you can find alternatives to, so you have no excuses to eat healthy. You have no excuses. There shouldn't be no excuses. You should get your life together, and the best way to get your life together is by getting your eating together. And yes, I understand that some of you guys are going to be more prone to eating bad. You're just going to be more prone not you know, being able to function the way you want to function. Because at a young age, you're eating all these bad foods, you're eating cookies, chocolate, chips, and all that. I was too, but I didn't fall victim to it because at a very young age, I started eating very healthy. I started tracking my well, I didn't really track my calories, but I started meal prepping. I started eating right. I started taking care of myself at a young age. I lost 25 pounds at 13, but I was getting fat, dude. At 13, I was getting fat because I was so used to eating so many bad foods. I was so used to being fed all the time. My mom would tell me, get us another plate. It's fine. And I finally realized after I gained so much weight, I was getting called cupcake at school and all that. I got tired of it. Started going to the gym, started exercising at 13. And by the time I was 14, I've lost 40 pounds. And now I'm pretty built. I'm in shape. I'm taking care of myself. I'm trying my best. Even to me, it's difficult. I still find myself reaching into the cookie jar. It's typical human behavior. We always do the things that are emotional instead of logical, because if we always worked with logic, we wouldn't be living in this world that we are living in today. So yeah, I want you guys to take that all and start activating your alpha brain versus your beta brain. It's just a simpler way to put it. It's not really that deep. Yeah, I'll leave you guys with that.